Testing, testing. Hello, friends. This demo is about layers. Here I've prepared a series of images in Photoshop. You should all recognize how Photoshop looks and behaves. You simply put one layer literally on top of the next to build up your image. And the layering mode located here by default is set to normal. We're going to look at how to do this in Nuke. I've prepared this little series of images here from scratch using found images, brought them into Nuke, and this is literally how you do exactly the same thing in a node-based context. So to rebuild this for you, I'm just going to select those, Command C, Command V, something great that you can do in Nuke. Bring the viewer over here. Let's see, I'm going to take this apart, just dismantle this work a little bit. And before I get started, I want to make sure that my project is set up correctly. The first thing that you want to do in Nuke, no matter what you're doing, every time you open Nuke, you should hit the S key, S like settings. It will pull up this window where you tell Nuke the size of your image and the frame rate, and also decide the frame range of your clip. Here I'm going to change it to 1920 by 1080 as named in the files. These are 1920 by 1080. When I select one of these images and push 1, look at it in the viewer, Nuke tells me its actual resolution, but the project needs to be set to that resolution. Here you'll find HD, and you can click it. Boom. If you do not find the resolution here, by default, you can actually create a new one by clicking this and type in the numbers that you want. But here we have HD 1920 by 1080, and we will go with that. Also, you notice that when these files get pulled in, they're not necessarily organized the way that you would want. You could click, drag, and select, and push the L key, and it will arrange them for you so that you can see what you have. When you open up files in Nuke, you want to go through and just take a look at each one to get a sense of what you're working with. So if you notice in this tree over here, everything flows downward as these layers build up. And the final result is at the bottom. So in Nuke or node-based workflows, everything flows down. Whereas if you go back over to Photoshop, it's sort of slightly more intuitive to think about that you're building on top of the bottom layer. It goes in the opposite direction in Nuke. So we will start with our background image, which is this. I'm going to frame this up. Start with our background, and if we think logically, we can guess what should go on top of what. So the moon is farthest back out of everything, so we will put this on top of our house background scene. So I'll select this, hold shift, select this, tab, and I will use merge. Merge is how I do any kind of layering in Nuke. Over here in the whoops, I'm just going to make sure I view this. Over here in the operation for the merge node, this is the same as layering modes. Here I can see that it defaults to over, but it also has overlay, screen, soft light, color burn, color dodge, things that you probably recognize from Photoshop. These layering modes over here, it says color dodge, overlay, soft light, and whatnot. So it's the exact same thing. One thing to note is that here where it says normal, the interpretation of that in Nuke is over. So it just places one on top of the other. I'm going to double click this and look into its parameters. Here this box is checked, Premultiply. This is not checked by default. And if I uncheck it, it means, well, Premultiply means, remember R, G, B, and A. R plus G plus B times A times alpha, the alpha channel, literally multiplying the alpha channel by the color. Pre-multiplied means, yes, in those channels we have multiplied them together, therefore the software knows what is transparent and what is not. If this is not pre-multiplied, then it will not know. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-multiply this. These source files were prepared in Photoshop, so it's behaving a little bit unorthodox. So because you won't have to do this every time, but because I prepared these in Photoshop and exported them as PNGs, we have to pre-multiply these before we work with them, so that we know what is opaque before we put it on top of something else. Alright, so I've now put the moon on top of this background. And what I'm going to do as I create this tree is have like a backbone almost going straight down that I keep adding things to. So once I have that, I'll go here, and yes, I want I want the tree to be next. So I'll select this, hold shift, select the other one, tab, merge, pull this down so I have a nice basis here, and boom, there we go. This is also pre-multiplied. And finally, like I said, I'm building off of this straight line here. Of course, these could be arranged in other ways, but this is the smoothest. And you do not want any of these wires crossing. So I'll go here. Okay, guess what I'm about to do next. And once again, the workflow of any given node is A over B. If I switch these and do B over A, it won't work. So if you're having a problem, that might be one thing you want to check. We are putting the input of A over the input of B. Putting the fence, putting this result over this result. And get this. Boom. And that's it. That's how you create layers. You definitely want to be careful about, yes, maybe you do put it correctly into A and B, but then if you move this over here, if you have a large comp happening, it's easy to confuse this and think that this is the B side instead of the A side. So keep this on the left, keep this on the right, have a nice left to right reading of A over B, an intuitive feel for it. Another thing that you should do when you're building up a composite or a node tree is to leave enough space like this. Don't be afraid to spread it out. You don't cluster them like this because then it's hard to reach. But also you might end up adding something anywhere along the way, so it's great to have plenty of space. Best practices, you also want to always label your nodes. So right now they're just defaulting to read because it is a read node. So here we can say moon. And actually it's better to do this first, but anytime is okay. And just double click it, go into its parameters, and rename. Other best practices, at the end, you would, especially if it's a large comp, I'm accessing a node called Nuke, no operation. It means it does nothing. So what you can do is create one of these, and then at the end say output. Then we know we're finished. We know that we would output from here. Cool. Thank you very much.